Lara Voss gripped the edge of the command chair, her knuckles white against the polished surface. The hum of the ship's engines beneath her feet was the only sound in the dimly lit command room, broken only by the occasional crackle of static from the communication consoles. It had been quiet for too long, a dead silence that made her skin crawl. Too quiet for comfort. "Captain, we're reading a spike in energy signatures." The voice of Lieutenant Jonah Perez broke through the tension. He was staring at the console with wide eyes, fingers flying over the keys. "They're here." Lara didn't need to ask who they were. Everyone in the galaxy knew the name Tsar. An alien overlord with a ruthlessness that knew no bounds, and a burning hatred for humanity that ran so deep it had become an obsession. His empire had wiped out entire human colonies, leaving nothing behind but burning ruins and empty skies. "Alert all stations," Lara barked. "Prepare for immediate combat. Launch all fighters." She turned to face the large window, staring out into the vast void of space. The stars blinked back at her, unaware of the impending doom. The quiet was shattered by the shriek of a proximity alarm. Lara's pulse quickened. They were close, too close. The distress signals from nearby stations were already pouring in. It was happening. Tsar's forces were descending on them like vultures over carrion, and humanity had no place to run. Jonah's voice came again, tremulous this time. "Captain, there's something else. There's an anomaly in their formation. It's not just a raid." Lara swiveled in her chair, eyes narrowing. "Explain." "They're not here to just conquer us, Captain. This looks like a full annihilation." Jonah paused. "It's like they know we're out of time." Her heart skipped. The thought had crossed her mind, but hearing it out loud was something else entirely. "Do they know we've uncovered their weapon?" Jonah looked uneasy. "I don't know, but if they're pushing this hard—" "I know," Lara interrupted, her voice like steel. She'd suspected this moment was coming, but this was different. The battle wasn't for territory anymore. It was for humanity's very survival. She leaned forward, tapping her fingers on the armrest. "All hands, prepare for immediate engagement. We are not going down without a fight." Outside, the chaos was unfolding. The fleet of Tsar's ships, massive and foreboding, filled the space before them, blotting out the stars. Their sleek black hulls glinted under the eerie glow of the nearby planet, like harbingers of doom. "All stations are ready, Captain," Jonah reported, snapping Lara out of her trance. "Ready for launch." "Launch," she ordered, her voice cutting through the growing panic. The launch sequence was fast, too fast. Fighters shot out of the bays like bullets from a gun, zooming towards the enemy ships that now loomed large on their screens. Lara's hands clenched around the console as her fighters scattered, breaking formation, each one determined to buy time for the rest of humanity to escape. "Multiple ships dropping out of FTL," Jonah muttered. His eyes were glued to the display as the alien forces began to materialize from the folds of space. "They're not just here to fight, Captain. They're here to end us." "Get me Commander Reyes," Lara snapped, her voice tight. She needed her best strategist now. Moments later, the face of the grizzled commander appeared on the holographic screen. His eyes were sharp, the lines on his face deep from years of warfare. "Lara, they're hitting us harder than expected," Lara said, not wasting time on pleasantries. "How many ships can we afford to lose before we're overrun?" Reyes leaned back in his chair, his eyes scanning the incoming data. "We're outnumbered 5-1. No chance of survival if we don't get that weapon operational. If your intel's right, that's the only thing we've got that can turn this around." Lara's heart sank. The weapon, humanity's last hope, a secret that could change the course of the war, was still untested. Its potential was terrifying, both in its power and its consequences. The risk was monumental. "I'll find a way," Lara said, cutting the conversation short. She didn't have time to dwell on the implications. She had a crew to save. Just as she turned back to the console, the ship rocked violently. A dull explosion shook the hull, followed by the deafening sound of alarms. Jonah's voice came again, frantic. "Hull breach, Deck 6. We've got enemy fighters inside. Send the teams to Deck 6, now! Lara barked. Hold them off at all costs. The breach was only the beginning. An entire fleet of Tsar's fighters had infiltrated the station, cutting through the weak points in their defenses like a hot knife through butter. It was a fight on two fronts now, one in space, and one in the heart of their base. Captain, we've got something else, Jonah said, his voice shaky. There's a transmission. From Tsar. Lara's blood went cold. Put it through. The screen flickered to life, and there, standing in the dark shadows of a metallic throne room, was Tsar. His face was an expressionless mask, eyes cold and calculating. He spoke, his voice calm but laced with venom. You thought you could hide, human? The galaxy has judged you, and found you wanting. He smirked, a flicker of cruel amusement dancing in his eyes. I gave you a chance to submit. But now it's too late. Prepare for your extinction. Lara's heart pounded, her teeth grinding. This was the moment. The endgame. She leaned into the microphone, her voice steady, almost mocking. You made a mistake, Tsar. You forgot one thing, we didn't ask for this war. But we'll finish it on our terms. Tsar's face darkened, his expression turning to one of seething rage. You're a fool. You'll burn just like the rest of them. The transmission cut out abruptly, leaving only the silence of space behind. Lara's breath came in shallow bursts, her mind racing. They were not just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for revenge. For everything they had lost. The ship shuddered again as the external cannons began firing, a loud barrage echoing across the space station. Lara turned to Jonah. Deploy the fighters, now. This was the moment. No more running. No more hiding. Humanity was going to make its stand. Let's show them what it means to pick the wrong enemy. The fleet outside began to charge. The battle for Earth's future was just beginning. Asterisk cliffhanger ending asterisk just as the battle erupted into chaos. Lara's communication console beeped. It was a message from her former best friend, now a traitor, one who had played a pivotal role in humanity's downfall. The message was short, asterisk. You won't win this, Lara. They never lose. Asterisk. The station was a battlefield. Metal groaned under the weight of enemy fire, and the air was thick with the smell of burning circuitry. Every few seconds the station rocked from another explosion, sending shivers through the bones of those who still fought for survival. Lara Voss stood at the center of it all, her feet firmly planted on the command deck. The chaos outside was mirrored by the chaos within the station. Yet she remained calm, every decision sharp, every movement purposeful. She had seen the horrors of war, but the stakes had never been higher than this. The aliens weren't just here to conquer, they were here to obliterate everything. The bridge crew worked furiously around her. Jonah Perez's fingers never stopped moving across the terminal, eyes darting between screens, feeding her the numbers, the reports, the bad news. The humans who had survived Tsar's opening salvo now crowded the station's defensive positions, fighting back against the relentless alien assault. Captain, incoming ship. It's not Tsar's fleet, Jonah said, his voice cracking as he watched the unfamiliar vessel appear on his radar. They're human. Human? Lara repeated, eyebrows raised. She couldn't believe it. Their allies were few and far between. What are they doing here? Jonah didn't have an answer. The ship was taking heavy damage from enemy fighters, and it was clear that whoever had come to their aid was in just as much trouble as they were. Can you get them on comms? Lara barked. We're trying, but the interference from the fight. It's not stable. Jonah's voice was laced with frustration, the weight of the situation pressing on him. He was good, but not even Jonah could work miracles when it came to enemy tech scrambling their communications. Lara's mind raced. A human ship coming to their aid in the middle of an all-out assault? It could mean the difference between life and death. But trust was a rare commodity right now. They had been betrayed before. Could this be a trap? A sudden burst of static on the comms interrupted her thoughts. Then, a voice came through, distorted but unmistakable. This is Commander Roan of the Righteous Fury. We've come to help. Lara's jaw clenched. Roan. She knew that name, and she knew the man who carried it. Roan had been one of her closest allies back during the early days of the war. But a year ago, during a critical operation, he had disappeared without a trace. Rumors swirled, some said he was dead, others that he had defected. To hear his voice now sent a strange mixture of relief and suspicion through her. "You've got 5 minutes, Commander," Lara said, her voice sharp as she focused on the tactical map. "If you're here to help, don't waste my time." The comms crackled again. "We've got a solution for your problem. Meet us at coordinates Delta 7. Trust me, Lara, we need to do this now or it's over for both of us." Lara didn't hesitate. "Jonah, get our forces to Delta 7. We'll meet Roan there." Jonah nodded, typing furiously as he relayed orders to the various factions within the station. Time was running out, and every second counted. The ship began moving toward the designated coordinates. As they navigated the winding corridors of the station, Lara's mind kept returning to Roan. She trusted him once, could she still? The war had changed everyone. What if Roan was here to lead them into another ambush? "Captain," Jonah interrupted her thoughts. "We've received a transmission. From Tsar." Lara froze. The last thing she wanted was to hear from the maniac who had orchestrated their destruction. But Jonah's hands were already working the console, pulling the transmission into the main screen. Tsar's face filled the screen, his presence as imposing as ever. The glow of his alien armor cast a shadow over his dark, sharp features, his eyes colder than the vast void of space. "Lara Voss," he said, his voice a smooth, deadly monotone. "You're a stubborn one, I'll give you that. But it's over. You know it. I know it. Your species has run out of time. This little station, your pathetic fleet, they won't save you." Lara didn't flinch. She had heard this speech more times than she cared to remember. Tsar was always the same, calm, calculating, and cruel. "You didn't answer my question," Lara said, her tone cold and unwavering. "Why are you here?" Tsar's lips twisted into a cold smile. "Your little resistance has a surprise in store, doesn't it? Your weapon. But you forget one thing, Captain. I know about it. And I'm not going to let you use it." Lara's heart skipped. He knew about the weapon. Their last hope, Tsar was already ahead of them. "The weapon is humanity's last chance," she said. "If we die, we will take everything with us." Tsar's expression darkened. "You misunderstand, human. You won't just die. You will disappear." With that, the transmission abruptly ended, leaving nothing but static in its wake. Lara's stomach twisted. The weight of Tsar's words pressed down on her, but she couldn't afford to falter. There was no time to question the unknowns. She had to move forward. Minutes later, Lara's team arrived at Delta 7, a quiet corner of the station hidden beneath layers of decaying infrastructure. As they approached, a figure appeared in the shadows. Roan. He stepped forward, wearing the same combat gear Lara remembered, dirted, battle-worn, but still unmistakably his. His eyes were sharper than she remembered, and the weight of the years showed on his face. "You look like hell," Lara said, offering him a wry smile. Roan chuckled darkly. "You don't look much better yourself, Captain." But his humor was short-lived. His expression turned serious, almost grim. "We're in deeper than we thought, Lara. The weapon you're after, it's not just a weapon. It's a key to something much larger. Tsar wants it because it could undo everything he's worked for." Lara's heart raced. "A key? What was Roan talking about?" "What do you mean, a key?" Lara demanded. Roan looked around to make sure they weren't being watched. "If we don't get it before Tsar does, it won't just be humanity that's wiped out. The entire galaxy could collapse. That weapon, asterisk whatever asterisk it is, has the potential to end the war in one strike. But it's not just a weapon. It's a secret." Lara was silent, taking it all in. The stakes had just been raised beyond what she'd imagined. "We don't have time for secrets, Commander," she said. We need to move now. Asterisk cliffhanger ending asterisk. Just as Roan opened his mouth to speak, the lights flickered, and an alarm blared. Tsar's fleet had arrived. The countdown to humanity's final stand had begun. The station shook again, more violently this time. The entire structure groaned as if it were on the verge of collapse, and the walls seemed to close in around Lara. She gritted her teeth, forcing herself to stay calm. It was either that or break. There was no in-between. "Captain, they're through the outer shields." Jonah's voice came through the intercom, rough with the strain of the situation. "We have 30 minutes, maybe less, before their bombers reach the core." Lara didn't respond immediately. Her mind was racing. Every second counted now, but she had no time to waste on the overwhelming scale of what was happening. The weapon. It was the only chance they had left. It had to be more than a myth, more than a rumor. Roan had been clear about that. The stakes had just changed. No longer was humanity fighting for survival. They were fighting for the very fabric of the galaxy itself. "We're not letting them destroy the core. Prepare the secondary defense systems, activate everything," Lara commanded. The emergency lights flickered, casting red glows over the cold metallic surfaces of the bridge. Jonah's hands flew over his console, and the low hum of the station's emergency power kicked in. But the sense of urgency was undeniable. "We're going to need a miracle to hold them back," Jonah muttered under his breath, though Lara could hear the fear in his voice. It was the first time she had heard it since the battle had begun. "Then we'll make our own miracle," Lara replied, her voice unwavering. They had no choice but to push forward. She turned to Roan, who stood by, looking like the weight of the universe was on his shoulders. His eyes were hard, yet his posture betrayed something else, fear, maybe, but determination too. Roan met her gaze. "It's not enough to just keep them out. We need the weapon now." Lara nodded. "Where is it?" Roan hesitated for a moment before responding. "The weapon is in the old cryo chamber, locked behind a dead man's code. A fail-safe, one that only I can bypass. I'll need 15 minutes to override it." 15 minutes? Lara's mind raced. It felt like a lifetime. But if there was a way out, this was it. They couldn't afford to wait for a miracle. They had to make one. "Then we don't have time to waste," Lara said. "Jonah, take control of the station's defenses." "I'm going with Roan." Jonah gave her a sharp nod. "Understood. I'll keep the enemies at bay as long as I can." Roan and Lara moved quickly, dodging firefights and stumbling through the halls filled with smoke and flashing lights. The station had become a war zone. Every corner seemed to hide death, but they had no choice but to press forward. They reached the cryo chamber entrance after what felt like an eternity. The entire area had been shut down for years, unused, forgotten. The cold, sterile atmosphere was thick with dust, and Lara's breath came out in white clouds as she entered. Roan walked to the terminal, punching in a series of commands. A long, low beep echoed through the room, and a holographic display appeared before them. It was the fail-safe. A sequence of codes and symbols flickered across the screen, designed to keep out anyone who wasn't authorized. "This is it," Roan muttered as he began typing. His fingers were quick, but Lara could tell by the tense set of his jaw that time was slipping away from them. Outside, she could hear the distant thrum of approaching enemy ships. The countdown had started. Tsar's fleet was closing in on them. The terminal beeped again, a series of increasingly urgent alarms flashing. Roan cursed under his breath. "I need more time." Lara's patience was wearing thin. She turned and grabbed him by the shoulder. "Do whatever it takes. We need that weapon now, or we're dead." Roan's eyes flickered with something darker. "Regret? This isn't how I wanted it to go down, Lara. But I don't think we have a choice anymore." Lara's grip tightened. "We don't have a choice. It's now or never, Roan." There was no more time for talking. He typed faster, sweat trickling down his face, eyes darting from screen to screen as the seconds ticked by. Lara could hear the clattering of boots and the buzz of the distant gunfire, the last few moments before everything changed. If they failed, the galaxy would fall. Humanity would be a footnote in the universe's history. Finally, Roan's fingers froze on the terminal. The red light above the chamber door flickered and then turned green. A mechanical hiss followed, and the door slid open with a heavy creak. Inside, rows of dormant cryogenic pods lined the walls. But at the far end, a pedestal stood, bathed in soft blue light. And on it, a weapon, glowing faintly. Lara's breath caught in her throat. It wasn't what she had expected. It wasn't a bomb, or a gun, or anything remotely like the weapons she'd seen in battle. No, this was something different. Ancient. Something beyond her understanding. "It's not just a weapon," Roan said, his voice hushed. "It's the weapon. It's a relic, Lara. Built long before any of us knew how to use it." Lara stepped forward, her hand shaking slightly as she reached out to touch it. The moment her fingers brushed against the surface, the entire chamber hummed with a low, steady vibration. The weapon reacted to her touch, its form shifting, expanding like it was alive. "This is it," Roan whispered. "The key. The answer to ending this war." But before they could react further, a new voice echoed through the chamber, cold, ruthless, unmistakable. "Well, well, well. What do we have here?" Tsar's voice rang out from every speaker in the room. His figure appeared on the central display, his face twisted with the amusement of a predator seeing its prey cornered. Lara's heart pounded as she turned to face the screen. "You're too late, Tsar," she said, her voice a calm contrast to the rising tension in her chest. "We've got what we need." Tsar's smile faded, replaced by a look of cold fury. "You think you can use that relic against me? You have no idea what you're dealing with, human." "I've got a better idea," Lara said, stepping closer to the weapon. "I'm going to end this. For good." As she activated the device, the room pulsed with energy, the weapon glowing brighter and brighter. The air thickened with power. Tsar's voice cracked like thunder. "You don't know what you're doing!" Lara didn't care anymore. She was done with this. Done with running. Done with being the hunted. This ends now. Asterisk cliffhanger ending asterisk. The weapon roared to life, and the station trembled under its force. The entire structure seemed to shudder, groan, and warp as though the fabric of reality itself was bending. Tsar's voice cut through the chaos, louder, more desperate. The screen flickered, and everything went black. The weapon thrummed with power, its raw energy coursing through the air, vibrating the very structure of the station. Lara Voss could feel it in her bones, a hum that reverberated deep inside her chest. The weapon was no longer just a relic, not just a tool for war. It was a force of nature, and humanity's last hope. But the moment she activated it, the lights in the chamber flickered and the walls seemed to shrink, as if the station itself was being drawn into the weapon's pull. Tsar's mocking laughter echoed in her ears, making her gut tighten. "You think you can control it, human? This is my galaxy, and you will bow before me." Tsar's voice snarled through the comm system, dripping with venom. Lara's hand tightened on the device, her heart pounding in her ears. She had no time for this. She had no time for Tsar's threats, no time for his games. There was no more negotiation, no more mercy. "Stop talking, Tsar," she said through gritted teeth. "You're done." The weapon blazed with light, the glow around it intensifying as the energy fed into the station's core. Lara glanced at Roan, who was watching her with wide eyes. His expression had shifted from determination to something else, concern, maybe even fear. But Lara couldn't afford to acknowledge it. The device was a bomb, a key, an ancient power that could either save humanity or wipe out everything. They had no second chances. "I don't know if I can control it, Lara," Roan admitted, his voice low. "If I mess up the sequence, it could." "Don't say that!" Lara snapped, cutting him off. "We don't have a choice. We fight or we die." But Roan's words lingered in her mind, and the unease gnawed at her insides. Could she trust this weapon? Could she really rely on it to save them all? What if it was just as dangerous to them as it was to Tsar's forces? Before she could voice her thoughts, the station shuddered violently, sending both of them sprawling to the floor. The weapons they had set in motion weren't just shaking the station, they were cracking it apart. The light from the weapon grew brighter, more unstable, as though it were tearing at the fabric of reality itself. "Captain?" Jonah's voice blared through the comms, urgent and frantic. "We've got company. Tsar's fleet has launched a full assault on the core. We're not going to make it if we don't act now." Lara's heart skipped. They were already fighting to keep the station intact, but if Tsar's ships breached the core, it was over. She wouldn't, let that happen. Not after everything they had been through. "Prepare all forces to defend the core," Lara ordered, her voice cold and calculated despite the panic rising within her. "We're not losing this station. Not today." Roan's eyes flicked toward the weapon, his concern deepening. "Lara, you're asking for too much. If the weapon's unstable, I said do it." Lara cut him off, fury in her voice. "We finish this now." The hum of the weapon reached a deafening crescendo as Roan typed frantically, overriding sequences and bypassing protocols. Lara didn't watch him. She couldn't. Instead, she focused on the task at hand, survival. Their survival. Suddenly, the station's hull groaned once more, the alarms blaring louder. It was a deafening sound, signaling the impending breach. Lara's fists clenched. They had moments, maybe less, before the entire station collapsed in on itself. "Lara!" Jonah's voice again, breaking through the noise. "They've activated their gravity wells. We're stuck here." "Damn it!" Lara hissed. "Tell me we've got backup." "Backup?" Jonah's voice cracked with disbelief. "They've got 1,000 ships on us. This is it." Lara felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She could almost hear the heartbeat of the station as it slowed, its systems strained under the pressure. But something else was there too, something in the pit of her stomach. A feeling that this wasn't just a battle for survival. It was a battle for control. For freedom. And for what humanity stood for. Roan hit the final key, his breath shaky. The weapon was locked into place, its energy now fully charged. He looked at Lara, fear and hope battling in his eyes. "Lara! I did it! It's activated. But I don't know if we can survive the backlash." She nodded grimly, trying to steady her own breath. "We'll survive. We have to." Before Roan could respond, the lights flickered again, and then, nothing. The whole station went dark. The sound of Tsar's fleet charging in the distance filled her ears, the storm of enemy fire rapidly approaching their position. Lara felt the temperature drop. The air grew thick, suffocating. Then, everything exploded. A blinding wave of energy erupted from the weapon, cascading through the station's walls, bursting outward like a star being born. Lara's vision went white, and for a split second, she thought she might have lost everything. Her body felt weightless, as if the very air had been sucked from her lungs. For what felt like an eternity, there was only silence. Then came the sound, the screeching, grinding sound of metal being torn apart. The station groaned under the weight of the energy from the weapon. Lara gasped, her head spinning as the reality of what had just happened hit her. The energy was overwhelming, but it was also exactly what they needed. It wasn't just a weapon of destruction, it was an energy source, an ancient power that ripped apart Tsar's fleet and tore through the very heart of his invasion. But that wasn't the end of it. In the silence that followed, the final twist came. Lara's console beeped, and a new transmission appeared. This one wasn't from Tsar. It was from one of the survivors in the fleet. A message, hastily written and transmitted just before the station's systems shut down. "Lara, it's not over. Tsar was just the beginning." Lara's heart froze as she stared at the screen. The message was too brief to understand, but it didn't matter. She knew one thing for sure. Tsar was just a part of a much larger threat, one that humanity had never anticipated. The weapon had done its job. It had destroyed Tsar's fleet, obliterated the forces that sought to wipe them out. But in doing so, it had unleashed something far more dangerous. The real enemy. "Roan!" Lara whispered, her voice filled with dread. It's not over. And with that, the final, terrible truth sank in: the war was far from over. Humanity had won this battle, but the fight for their survival had only just begun. Cliffhanger ending. The screen flickered once more, and then, the words appeared. You've awakened the sleeping gods.